All right, John, you are recording.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming to you recorded on GEVA Live. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties this evening and could not get our Facebook feed to work. We are working on that, but we still have a great presentation and great show for you this evening. I have, in no particular order, William Doyle, Kevin Delorier, Merlin Thompson, John and Cody Kessel coming from Colorado, and without a doubt, our technical coordinator for this evening, Aaron Laban, doing a great job behind the scenes. We have a bunch of great coaching topics we want to get involved in with you this evening. My name is John Titus. I'll be hosting the event, moderating the event, and my goal is to just get out of the way and get these geniuses in volleyball talking. Before we get really going into the meat and potatoes of our debate, I do want to give some time to our commissioner, Kevin Delorier, to kind of talk about what's going on in the state of affairs in the GEVA region. So Kevin, it's all yours for a couple.
All right, thanks, John. Yeah, so with obviously during this pandemic, it's been a very fluid situation in terms of deadlines, tournaments, which tournaments we think they might be trying to get running. And there's just a lot of questions people have been asking. So our staff with Bill, the other directors, John is on the staff as well. Aaron helps with social media, have done a great job of keeping our membership informed, with everything that's been going on for us. We do take, some leads from USA Volleyball, but as an independent region, we do have to make some decisions ahead of what they are doing. And for us, that did happen 4 weeks ago, where things were just happening in our area very quickly. And Bill got on board and right away with the juniors division, since that's the main part of what helps GEVA run. And we just got as far ahead of this thing as we could, and started having weekly meetings about our progress and what we needed to do as a group. And we had just decided at that point that we needed to at least give it to the end of March, and which we, subsequently moved to the end of the regular season. And at this point, we're just kind of following the lead of USA Volleyball in terms of the last-ditch hopes of running the USA National Tournament. And, we'll just kind of see what they do. But the executive committee still meets weekly and still makes decisions on what we need to do moving forward. And then, this is also a time for us where we're heading off in different directions, trying to get some things done that we normally wouldn't get done in the course of the year. This time of the year, we're usually in championship mode. And now we can look at some education pieces and some, other parts of the volleyball that normally wouldn't get the attention that it gets. So it's still a pretty busy time for all of us, and we're making sure we make the best of that time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. No doubt. I feel like GEVA has definitely been ahead of the curve in a lot of these situations. And, I think a lot of the people in this virtual room for doing a lot of those things. So with that said, I want to get more to, why everybody's here, the more coaching side. Yeah, we can linger on the problems, but let's talk about some of the stuff we can do right now and going forward. And John, I read your last blog, and you have the great speaker, Michelangelo's quote on there, or some people say it's his. And I apologize for my poor Italian. On caro imparo. Do you want to speak a little bit about that and how that applies to this situation and what we can do right now in our homes, to still touch a volleyball or get better at volleyball right now?
Well, sure. And, I'm still learning. I had no idea that the Garden State had such amazing waves and trees at the southern part of New Jersey, clearly. I'm quite impressed with the southern part of New Jersey. It's a very unique time like this that Karch has been talking to people. I've had chances to talk to people. I was hoping and still may be there in July for an actual live course, but when you have to kind of shelter in place, The two things that I think are the most important are to learn from experts in their podcasts and their books. Now, my blog didn't mention books yet because that's coming out later. But the podcast I gave, if you're working around the house and that these podcasts are on, by the time you get to a month into this, you're going to be so much smarter than you were if you'd just been in the gym and training. So I list the top, I don't know, dozen podcasts that have impacted me over the years since podcasts have put out. And I'll, without any further ado, those stand on their own. Happy to see comments listing others that have impacted Merlin or Bill or you, John, or Aaron. Those are the ones that I've spoken on or that I've go to and learn from, mostly the science. On the flip side, as a player or as a kid wanting to learn the game, you know, it's like, whoa, it's a little bit harder. But I had a friend named Mashallah Farokmanesh, who was from Iran, played on the men's national team for many years. His son was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a basketball player about a decade ago from Northern Iowa. And the guy spoke of how he lived in the mountains of Iran, and he would give his grandmother a cup of coffee, and then they would go outside to a place where the balls would return, and she was his setter. And she couldn't do much other than slap the ball up, but he would pass it to her, and she would set him, and he would hit. Now, Cody is here. He's playing professionally in Germany, and he had kind of an interesting cutback. He went from MVP on one Sunday, Tuesday being told the next match is with no fans, Wednesday the entire league is canceled, Thursday Trump announces the EU ban, and Friday, Saturday he turns in his car, cleans out his apartment, and with Ben Patch flies back through Newark, New Jersey, en route to Colorado for his 14-day quarantine. So we've set up a court because we have a lot of space. But you don't need a court. You need a little brother, a little sister, a big brother, a big sister, a grandma, a mom, or a dad to be your setter. And you need kind of like a corner to corral the balls, and you need a string or a rope, or yeah, sure, a net, but just something that you can put up at the height of the net that you play on, 8 foot or 7, 4 1/4, or even lower for the younger kids. And you can do pass, set, hit and get reps. And as my blog points out, in the science of learning, the more you can make your brain forget and then remember, the better you learn it. So you don't want to just pass 1,000 balls or set 1,000 balls. You want to do the kind of chaotic things that happen when you follow Marv Dunphy's great quote of, since we learn best from things that are game-like, the best passing drill is pass, set, hit, the best setting drill is pass, set, hit, and the best hitting drill is pass, set, hit. So that can be done with one sibling who sets you and, teach them first to a meter ball, because that's the easiest. As they get better, they go higher. And I'm going to let Cody kind of address this, because when he played in his senior year with 7 other friends who formed a boys team in high school, because one of their friends lost his father and they wanted to keep him kind of engaged. So all these other seniors put together a team. Cody was the only kid who had ever played volleyball before February start. They were athletes. We ran a 6-3. Cody set 2 of the 6 rotations. But 4 times he was getting pretty chaotic setting. And I remember him saying at one point in time, man, that sets are just all over the place. And I said, yeah, that's making you a better hitter. So I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, you don't need a perfect set from mom or dad or from an uncle or But if you're able to get the garage door or whatever setup going, and you have someone just putting up that second contact, all of a sudden you can get really good at hitting all these weird balls. And if you're outside, it's going to be in the wind. It's going to be even more chaotic compared to when you go indoors. So that's another thing that's going to maybe help you with the randomness of it. So to not let that deter you, I guess.
Now, we're kind of lucky here because we could put up a full court. And if you can in your backyard, we highly recommend it. But for the last 2 days, I haven't seen Cody for several hours, and he's up there working on his jump serve, without anybody. He just put it so that the balls would kind of roll back. We tried to put up some fencing to help that, and the wind blew it down. So I don't know. What are you thinking when you're up there by yourself?
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have that whole setup, I know we're probably in the minority there.
Backyards.
Yeah, backyards. You can randomize it yourself. So, I think you can do the classic thing. Okay, I'm going to hit it. You pick a spot and see if you can hit it, or you can even toss a different hand, or make sure you're changing up where you're going from the end line. It's just kind of a time to explore like the whole space. You can if you have a short court, don't worry about it. You can swing from there. If you got a deeper court, you can move around. And that actually, a lot of the motor learning science shows that'll actually make you a better server from the spot that you like to serve from if you're really mixing it up and being pretty random that way. So
now, if you're
I like that idea.
You just have one other friend who can play. Sorry?
Sorry, yeah.
If you have one other friend who actually...
It was huge, without a doubt. Randomization, of play, of spot. I think that's incredible. I've seen a lot of kids that just put down a board and are hitting against that board, and pepper, like you said, pass set hits themselves. I've never seen so many kids in the last 20 years so happy to hit against the board all of a sudden. It's incredible, like it's never been there before, and it's one of the most basic tools we've had, but we forgot it exists. I was to Merlin. Merlin, you're in a little bit different setting. Merlin, you're in the urban setting where kids don't have a backyard. What can kids do in their urban setting that they might not be able to, if they don't have a backyard per se?
Well, basically, you can play volleyball anywhere. So if they have a living room, if they have a bedroom, they can move the bed to the side. They can put up a little string, like John says. And my friend Jerome from France is sending me some sit-in volleyball information. You know how it would be great if you could actually do sit-in volleyball, because you don't need much court space, and you don't need to move around a lot. So if you can play 1-on-1 sit-in volleyball, 2-on-2 sit-in volleyball, it'll be tremendous. So in the urban setting, I would go more for something like sit-in volleyball, because you don't want kids banging the ball against the wall and stuff like that. I don't think the parents are going to like that too much.
Cool, I agree. I'll go to Bill Doyle. Bill, do you have any things you see kids are doing at home that really inspire you, or you're really going, wow, I'm proud that kids are taking their own imagination and creativity and putting it to good use?
What I'm seeing is they're doing the same things we did in 1995 when we didn't have youth sports. 1955, excuse me, when we didn't have youth sports. They're bouncing the ball off the roof. They're throwing it over there, sending it over the house, hoping to hit a target on the other side. I think I learned to play a lot of volleyball by playing knock hockey, because I learned angles there. So there was, we played stoop ball, we did things like that, and that's what I see them doing. I see them, you go outside and you have a catch, or you go out and bounce the ball off the roof and catch the fly ball until somebody else in the neighborhood comes out. And then you play with them. Then you get a stickball game. And you get your parents mad because you draw a box with chalk on the side of the house, and that's the strike zone, and you play stickball. So that's what they're doing. And it's actually heartening to me that they're doing it.
I agree. Thank you. Next question I kind of addressed to Cody. Cody, I read the other day one of your blog pieces, maybe from a little while ago, and you got into a lot of goal setting, visualization, self-talk, into regulation. I'd really like to pry into kind of those areas. So let's start with the first one, goal setting, what does that mean to you? How do you define it? And then kind of how does today's player use that, or how have you used, goal setting and some of those other ideas?
Yeah, that post was just kind of directed at, in general, the mental game. And there's two things that kind of pop up for me for that in this time right now. And the first one is talking to Bill or my dad. I mean, they used to have to wait a month at a time to get the one volleyball magazine that would come in the mail, and they would get to look at the pictures maybe. And with internet access, you can watch the greatest players in the world at your position, or even the players a few years above you, or just great volleyball things to kind of feed your mind with that way, just with internet access. And then the visualization and the goal setting, I mean, they always tell that the story Michael Phelps sticks in my head, where he's going to bed every night and your brain is actually pretty poor at differentiating whether it's a real memory or if it's a created memory. So you can be really vivid with your visualizations. And so Phelps would go to bed and picture the perfect race, and then after a few months he'd picture a problem like his goggles filling with water and how he would handle that. Or you can make a really vivid picture as you're falling asleep, if wherever you are, just hanging out, about some skill you're working on. And you can reference all this. It's amazing, all the YouTube videos that you have to kind of see maybe what you want to have as a goal. But the goal setting, real quick, that is just super helpful. It makes all the trials and tribulations towards that goal worth it. So the classic acronym there is SMART: specific, measurable, actionable. Some are realistic and time bound, but if your goal can hit all of those, and there's actually a lot of power in just writing it down. So believe it or not, I think 7 or 8 years ago, I wrote down I want to play professionally and on the national team, and there's actually a lot of power in that, and just putting pen to paper, and where you want to be for all those kids, or where you want to be after this coming out of it, can be really powerful.
Now, I'm going to add something to that, because it's really important that anybody can set a goal saying, I want to play in college, or any college coach that might be listening. None of you would say, oh, I want to take third in the league. Even the 10th place team is probably going to say, my goal is to win the league. So what I'm more interested in is in what you will do in your goals, what technical, what physical, what time amount, what you will actually do to reach those goals. And that's why part of the SMART that Cody talked about, is realistic and has a time set to it. But a lot of people will set goals without telling me what the hard work and effort they're going to do to reach those goals.
I agree. And yeah, those little goals before the big goal. And I'm a teacher as well, and I teach in the classroom on the court. We sometimes refer to as backwards planning. Where do you want to get? And then you go backwards from there. And so I didn't understand that, and definitely agree upon that philosophy. Next question, kind of along the same lines, Kevin. We started talking a little bit about, reflection and goals. And, we went down this road already. We have our goals. And then we kind of get to a point where we either have to see if we got to that goal, or we reflect. Have you worked with your kids on, self-reflection, self-assessment? And what are some of the things you kind of work on with your kids, or your groups, in regards to goal setting and then reassessment and assessment?
Yeah, so when it comes to the goal setting part, one of the big things that we use with the kids is when they set that goal, they said, we look at it, talk about the realism of it, and then we talk about what are you willing to do to get there, because it goes back to what Cody and John were talking about with the SMART, and there's the action items on it, and then there's the holding yourself accountable to it. Mm-hmm. And what you're willing to do to get to that point is just as important as the physical aspects of doing it, because you have to overcome so many mental aspects to get there. there's just so many days where it's just so easy. I just don't want to do this today.
Mhm.
And so a lot of what comes across us is, you know, we really make sure we keep the fun in it. You know, when we see those kids struggling, you know, you know what they're feeling like. You know, they don't feel good about themselves at that time. You try to get with them and get them to laugh and get them to smile and get them to have fun, because you're having fun while you do this. So, you know, learning to pass the ball to target, you know, it's got to be fun. You know, the basic skills of what we're doing. So, you know, getting them to visualize that, we try to keep going back to, you know, we do this because we have fun. And you know, it might not be the always laughing at things. You know, it might be categorized or looked at a little differently in that, but trying to get them to realize that and try to get them to get past the instant success of what they're used to on quite a few things. You know, I can go play a game and instantly win it, where this particular game we're going to play it and we're going to fail and fail and fail, and then we're going to get it right, and boy, does that feel good.
Mhm.
And so just keep trying to get them focused on that. You know, those are a lot of the things that we consistently stay with the athletes, and we really try to keep it light. You know, the only time that, you know, for me, that I'm really getting on a kid is when the effort isn't there. When they aren't good enough at a skill, or they're not good enough at something, that's not their fault, that's my fault. You know, and that's how I look at it.
No, thank you, Kevin. I agree. It's, you know, again, celebrating these little successes. You know, I know Bill and I have had many conversations with, the pursuit of failure, failing better, and that, Carol Dweck growth mindset. So all those things come across there, and I think all those things are great. And just the idea of failure not being something to be afraid of, I think speaks volumes about where coaching is going and where I hope coaching is going. Kind of changing gears a little bit. Whether you're a young coach just starting up or a more seasoned coach, that needs to readdress. One of the questions we speak a lot about is the idea of philosophy. John or Cody, if one of you could address the idea of, what exactly is a coaching philosophy, and then how do I go about, developing what my philosophy is, and if I'm that more seasoned coach, is it time to change my philosophy? Do I adapt it, or do I stay with what I'm good at and, I don't budge on my ethics and morals, or do they change and ebb and flow as the game changes too?
You're the coach.
Well, in an impact manual, it's like the first and most important chapter after athlete safeguards and things like that. Obviously, safety in the athletes is number one. And it's there ahead of drill design and motor learning for a reason. I think every club's mission statement, why they exist, and even to the degree of their philosophy, should be on the door or on the wall right when every parent walks in, so that your staff and your players and your fans know what matters to that club. That said, the next thing is what you have, and does it match the mission statement of that club as you work for it? Those things are more personal as to why you coach and what your goal is. For me, when they threw me in the Hall of Fame, we had this weird 3 coaches getting it. One coach had 800 wins, another coach had 1,000 wins. And then I said, I've had 10,000 wins and 35 losses. And the crowd kind of laughed and went, what the heck? And I said, in my world, because I'm not always at the working. Yeah, I've been team leader, head coach at the Sydney Olympics. That was great. But when I'm working with the most important, the 14 and under, which is our pipeline and our future, I measure my matching up to my success by never being an athlete's last coach. That only 35 kids over my career have quit volleyball the year after I coached them. And that ties into what Kevin said about fun. And it lets me spend some time teaching all my kids sitting volleyball, especially because learning to read and playing over the net are the most important things that too many coaches forget to do. When you lose a gym, like you have currently, most of us, in a school situation, I would just take my kids to the cafeteria or to a hallway, and I would play sitting volleyball. And we didn't stop learning and laughing and having fun because sitting becomes kind of a leveler. But that's because my core philosophy does include the word fun. And it also includes the fact that I am teaching a sport of a lifetime. I wonder how many of GEVA's coaches, players know that there's an 80 and over national championship division. I'm betting it's not many. They kind of think that the game ends maybe after high school, which is terrible to think, you know. No, this is truly a sport for a lifetime. So I always make sure my kids see the 80 and over or the 73 and over and some of the stuff that's up on YouTube of the national championships being played, to spend time helping them understand that this is a sport for a lifetime. And your outcome is one thing, and that's pretty much out of your control. But the process that you go through, there's a lot that's in your control. And so I remain focused on those pieces of my coaching philosophy. The number one piece of it, outside of fun, is leadership. My coaching philosophy, you could almost sum up to say, is to develop amazing leaders. I take pride that my kids have been captains. I take pride how many of my kids become captains after they leave their club team and become captain of their school team. Mm-hmm. That's because within my training, I'm asking them questions and developing their leadership skills and developing the whole kid, not just the volleyball player. And if that's in my philosophy, then you understand why I coach.
Yep. No, thank you, John. I agree. Well, along the same lines with philosophy and development of a coach and reassessing himself year after year, you've talked a lot about in the past about the idea of storytelling within that philosophy. So, can you speak a little bit on where or how can one develop their philosophy? Maybe where do they look? What are some mentors they should look at, or resources they can use? And then kind of along the ideas of the art of storytelling within that philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great reminder. A great reminder of how we learn. We learn best from stories and not facts. Your parents don't put you to bed reading you bedtime facts. They tell you stories. Within that are morals and ideas. And it's very clear the way the brain is wired that stories will be remembered far superior. I would recommend James Leher, Loeher, has a book called The Power of Story. And he's a sports psychologist that's worked in the tennis world and around that other area. That's what he's saying. Help share your information through storytelling, not just facts.
Yep, thank you. I know, Bill Doyle, I know you have a lot to say on storytelling as well. Anything you want to add to, just the power of story and, within a coach's philosophy?
I guess, I guess I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time driving people around in cars and sitting, and that's my version of sitting at the feet of the masters. But I spent a lot of time with people like John and Bill Neville, Doug Beal, and Cecile Rudd, and what I got from them was stories. They didn't tell me this is this and this is that. What I got from them was stories. I love the stories, but I retained the content. And I think that's important. I think kids I have kids that come back and tell me, remember when you told us the story about, well, I was telling that in school the other day, or, or I was telling that to my kids. So, that's the story contains the content, and that's the way you remember it. I think that's really, really important. If you go back to philosophy a little bit, even if you're for me, my philosophy is still a little dynamic, because every once in a while I hear a story that says, "Wow, I don't think about that enough," or "I don't act on that enough," and those kinds of things. Well, I go back to say, well, yeah, maybe some. So I go back and my philosophy adjusts a little bit. I'm still at this old man age when I can remember to adjust it. But the reality is, if it's not a growth. If I ask you as a young coach to write down your philosophy, I ask you 2 years later to write it down, and you write the same thing, I'm probably thinking you're not going to be a great coach. Because if your philosophy when you're young isn't changing every once in a while, then you're probably not learning. And if you're not learning, I'm still learning. That's the word you said in the beginning, John, that you didn't know how to pronounce.
Yes. Ankaro and Paro. Thank you, Bill. No, I agree. It's, when you're looking at young children in the classroom, we talk about theme a lot, the lesson of the story, but theme is developed through emotion. And there's got to be an emotional connection to your philosophy, and there's got to be an emotion attached to the most powerful types of learning. So when a coach says something, there's no doubt if there's a connection with emotion, you're going to retain that. And good stories promote theme and emotion, whether we're in a classroom or on the court. There's no doubt. And the power of emotion and feelings is good. Kids remember when you make them feel great. They remember when you don't make them feel so great, but they remember. I will say, Merlin, anything on that as far as the power of storytelling or emotional, intelligence and stuff like that?
Well, I'm going to go back to the philosophy part because John and I both cadres and Bill, I consider him part of a family of cadres. But we did when we did Impact, when we actually taught Impact and not online, we used to do philosophy, and we'd have the coaches write their philosophy down without telling anybody. Then we'd read it to everybody. By the end of the Impact course, a lot of coaches have changed their philosophies because they've gotten so much more information, so much more detail about the sport, about how to coach, about how to talk to their kids, how to train their kids, that they do from the start of the Impact course to the end, people do change. So philosophy is really an ongoing thing. And like Bill said, every 2 years, no, you can change it in an hour. You could be a high school coach 1 year, and all of a sudden you're a college coach, and you got to change your philosophy. Because in high school, you may have to be playing a lot of kids. When you get to college, you may be playing limited kids. So it's a change. Philosophy is a work in progress, and only through education can it be better.
Thank you, Merlin. Yeah, Cody, addressing kind of the same idea to you is, when you get to philosophy and Merlin's talking about different avenues and different settings. Cody, you've had the privilege now to play, at Princeton University in Germany, working with the national team. Where does culture and climate and the setting change philosophy, or can you talk about some of the cultures and climates you've been in and how that weighs on philosophies and goal setting?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind with that is that, it's got to be genuine. So Sam Schweitsky at Princeton, his coaching philosophy and the things that, he has gotten from life in volleyball that he's drawing on to then create his philosophy and his environment and his coaching were way different than another coach. So just a quick example, Coach Schweitsky is really big on healthy masculinity and positive masculinity. So there's certain team rules that he wouldn't accept. Talking about girls in a certain way, or using certain words. He was able to take the things that meant the most to him of, hey, I want these guys to leave Princeton as better men, and here are the 3 things I think that are lacking in collegiate sport. For him, it was really genuine. And you get to my coach in Switzerland or in Germany, and they have their own experiences that they're drawing on, and they're creating their own genuine philosophy that's true to them. And that comes through when that's genuine to whatever coach and whoever you are. So, yeah. It's got to be your own. So you don't just copy paste that for sure. I mean, you go through all that and stuff and impact, but just think about what volleyball means to you in a larger sense, and what you want to get across to your players, what the most important things are.
So I'm going to tell Cody a phrase that's one of my slides. Culture eats talent for lunch.
Or breakfast.
And how have you seen that at each of your stops?
Yeah, I read something the other day that said you're going to have culture one way or another, so you might as well be intentional about it. It can make or break teams. Everyone knows that the culture and the way teammates and coaches and everyone are interacting is going to make or break the team in the long term. I've been lucky to be a part of some pretty great cultures, both in my time in Germany and my time in the States, but I don't really know what you're asking.
Well, I found working with Lunenburg to be a delight as they created their pipeline and they sent the same message down, and they were establishing a pretty healthy culture for a pro team that also had 14-year-olds within the program.
Yeah, it was.
But that was intentional.
It was intentional, yeah. And it just went back to kind of being this blue collar, hardworking team and club, and just the way that everyone interacts with each other. It's hard to sum up culture in just a few. There's so many things that go into it. It can be as little as walking in and saying hello to everyone. That's a thing in Russia or in Germany where you walk into your room and you go and shake everyone's hand. And there's the book, The Culture Code by Dan Coyle, for people who are interested. Maybe they can pick up a lot of things from that. There's a top-down change in someone as a human. Again, we're not coaching volleyball, we're coaching humans. So if you're the story is, if you walk into a party and there's a circle and everyone's back is turned and there's no one that kind of turns towards you, that can be a top-down kind of threat state that you get put in. And all of a sudden, if someone opens up to you and says, hey, come on in, your whole body changes. And so when it comes to what you're going to give into the gym and how the culture you create when you have athletes or your teammates entering the gym, just even the simplest little things of the way you can interact with them, you can start and build culture in that way. And when people feel safe, valued, that's going to open up a huge amount of effort and cooperation and just them being a good human that they probably wouldn't get if for whatever reason they feel threatened or not included. So it's another thing to just kind of keep in mind.
No, I agree. Thank you, Cody. When people's basic needs are met, and one of those is feeling safe, they learn better, no doubt about it. And Kevin, I know in your gyms, in all areas, both club and college, you really push culture as well. Anything you want to speak to as far as why culture is so important in your gym, and just again that top-down philosophy of leadership and things you might do. I know you've had some great outreach programs. You guys have done some fantastic things in your community. I don't know if you want to speak on some of those ideas. Your microphone's still muted, Kevin.
Yeah, from both levels, the club level and the collegiate level, the culture is what made the difference. And I'll be the first to tell you, it's not established by one person. I mean, yes, you can have a lead in philosophy and stuff like that, but I've come up, and I think most of us have come up with really good people around us that have helped us all learn from each other, helped us stay the path when we got off the path. And, like the recent college team that I was with, that was the difference. The culture just needed an infusement. There was talent there, and you could see it. I watched them play. Were winning every game they were in to 20. Problem was we played to 25, but you could see it was the culture that had them lose games. It was the individualism on the floor, the lack of unity, and that came back to culture. And then with club, the people that I work with are just very, very good in that department. Like that, there's just no breaking away from the core values, and culture is there. It's we're going to do things, and we're going to do it the right way, and it's about leadership. It's about making these kids better leaders, but so when they go to college, they're ready to be captains of teams. They're ready to come out of college and be good in society. And it's just, I've had the fortune to be around really good people, and so I get to learn from them every single time I show up in a gym, or just talk on the phone with them, or do something like this, where I get to be part of something like this and hear people tell. And the more you hear likeness of, it's about leadership, it's about culture, it's about treating each other well. The more you understand that it's really basic stuff. And in terms of outreach, that's a big part of what we've done through the club as well. We want to make sure that we're getting in, these kids involved at young ages, but it's not just our sport. Cody has said, we're teaching humans, not volleyball. It's right. We're trying to get these kids just involved, and when we're doing the younger kids, I mean, it's 10 minutes of volleyball maybe, because their attention span is so little. I mean, they want to chase you around the gym and play duck, great duck. They want to do stuff like that. And you know what? It's fun, and it's fun to watch them have fun doing it. So, it's fun to do it that way. And you just keep. I think the most recent thing for us was one of our friends started a foundation, to help people that are in need and for cancer research. And he started it out of a necessity. But from the get-go, he said, this, I don't want this for me. I want this for the people that really struggle. And he goes, yes, I do struggle, but we're going to be okay. And I want to make sure other people past us are okay. And that taught us a lot too, as people. And, so we've always given to the local community in those respects too. So I think our sport, our game teaches us those things. So.
I agree. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, the amount of local charity I've seen from club to club in the region, just in general, and the human race right now, has been great. Where we are right now in the New York City metropolitan area, obviously we've gotten hit a little bit harder than others, right now, but the outreach has been tremendous, on things. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and kind of do a little GEVA PSA. For those of you that are unaware, we are in the growing initiative stages of really pushing our sitting volleyball program for the region. And, we're just in, phase one. We're growing it. We're trying to outreach, find, Paralympians or future Paralympians, find those athletes, both young and old, both disabled and not disabled, that will participate. And we want to reach out, number one, say to every club in the region, we are starting this initiative, this program. And if you're interested, please comment in the contacts on the Facebook group, email us at GEVA, and we will run a program for you. But John, if you could just speak a little bit on, how should we go about starting our sitting volleyball program? Where should we reach out to? Why should clubs get involved in a sitting volleyball program? Why would it be a positive thing for their student athletes?
Thanks. I wrote Deaf Olympic as you were talking, and I want everybody listening today to understand that because of HIPAA laws and inclusion and the blind and the deaf schools have been kind of put into the regular schools, there is a U.S. beach men and women's Deaflympic team. There is a Paralympic and para-beach programming going on for males and females for the sitting game. And it's not just volleyball that the talent you guys and gals might see. There's 20 plus summer Paralympic sports. If you're confined to a wheelchair, you probably can't get out of it to play sitting. But there are amazing sports like wheelchair rugby, wheelchair tennis, that when you see that kid with their mom or dad in a grocery store, you kind of have to overcome, in my case, my shyness and say, does your son know that there's, he or she, your son or daughter might be able to represent the United States in wheelchair fencing and other sports? And a lot of times those parents had no idea that that opportunity existed. Our officials and people like GEVA coaches are the ones that find the majority of our talent for our men and women sitting team. They see a kid playing on a team and they've got a prosthetic on. They're missing an arm, a part of an arm. They're missing a leg and they're still playing. Laura Webster Bagnelli, who's up in the Long Island area of your region, moved from Cave Creek, Arizona, where she was the state champion. She was found by an official she was playing and she was jumping and she had this huge prosthetic leg that she would take off on the bench at times. And when I first started working with her, she was 16. She's now won a bronze, 2 silvers, and a gold, and is working towards her 5th medal in Tokyo. And when she played, I was Mike Hewlett, the head coach's assistant and team leader. When she played in Athens, I have this picture that I'll carry with me to my grave of her hitting, and the person who was digging her was 65 years old in the bronze medal match. So right after they golded in Rio, I calculated that she has like the possibility to play in 13 Paralympics before she hits 65. And that again is this lifetime sport. So what your coaches should understand is that when you lose the gym or you want to go have something fun someplace else, the opportunity in Netherlands, I'll use their numbers as an example. They have 4,000 members of their sitting program. 500 are disabled. 3,500 are able-bodied who just want to sit on the floor and play with their friends who are missing a leg and can't play the regular game. And sitting volleyball is played at the US Open. Cody's played on a team with Kevin Barnett, the Olympian, and some Paralympians. It's a blast to play. I mean, you like it?
I mean, yeah, and the adults who are, reaching prime, they can sit on the floor and their knees are saved. And, they have another 10 or 15 or more years on their game if they love the sport.
So when they come to us, the oldest age is 65 and the youngest is probably 13. The current starting setter played in our world championships when she was 13. So anybody you find that might have an interest to play sitting is there for the men and the women with an opportunity. Just don't forget that there's Winter Paralympics, Summer Paralympics, Deaflympics winter, Deaflympics summer, and that includes the blind and includes the wheelchair bound. There are all these ways to represent the United States, and I know GEVA would be thrilled to be proud to have talent ID that athlete on behalf of the U.S.
Absolutely. Thank you, John and Cody. I agree. It's a sport for everybody. Anybody can play sitting volleyball. And Bill Doyle, I'm going to kind of throw this over to you. So we talked about this is a new initiative to GEVA. So what resources, what can GEVA do for a local middle school, high school program, or for a club that's interested in getting sitting volleyball going in their area?
Well, I was actually writing stuff down here as we were talking. I think making it public would be getting it out there is a major deal. And don't be surprised if I present to the junior competition committee. There's at least one set we play in every tournament next year that we play in is one set or one match is going to be sitting. Let them go play. I think, and then somebody sees that, and then they go back to their school, and they'll bring it. I think that's your biggest audience, to get an audience that way. And just say, listen, you guys get to play plenty of volleyball standing up. For one set during the tournament, one match during the tournament, however it works out, you're going to sit down. We can do it. I don't see why we can't do it. We play it on a small court. We get some portable nets that we pull in. You don't have to tear the net down and put the net back up and all that kind of nonsense. You just get it done that way. I think that's really important. I think we spend too much time pigeonholing kids. With the youth sports in the country the way it is now, I don't know how much time. I guess at what point do we as parents choose a sport for our kid because they're too young to choose for themselves, and they play one thing, or they play two things, and that's it. And that to me is problematic. So if we don't show it, even in our own game, if we don't show it, how are we going to show other things? We have some great volleyball players. We actually have some great volleyball players, but I don't know how many kids we have that have I don't know, like maybe a true physical literacy, of how to move, how to bounce, how to jump, how to run. I can probably go into your gym and take your team, and you probably have a really good team and some really good volleyball players, and I ask them to run up and down again gym, and they don't know how to run. So how many times does that happen? So I think the same thing. I think we take these kids. If you take a group of 12 kids playing volleyball, they're going to go back to 12 different schools, maybe 10 different schools, and then they know somebody. We don't know everybody. For us to try to go and get into every high school, every middle school in the state or in 2 states, that's not going to happen. But we get ambassadors out there that will do that for us. I think that's So don't be surprised if I bring that up soon, because to me that's the way to do it. The more people you get as ambassadors, the better off you're going to be.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Bill. Merlin, along the same lines that Bill was talking about, within the region, we've seen some amazing outreach programs, some great community service stories in the volleyball world. What story or what fundraiser or what campaign that you've seen in this area, whether it be volleyball oriented or not, has really struck your hearts in your area of Queens, New York?
I would say right now in Queens, there's not a lot of volleyball in general. Basically, Creole, Bayside Volleyball Club, and a few others are, again, the volleyball community. What's happening in this area is simply that we cater to a lot of the public school kids. A lot of the public school kids who have to take a bus to school and not mom and dad driving them to practice and so on. So, when you tell a mom and dad your kid is going to come home at 9, leave practice at 9:30 at night, it's very difficult. So what I have done in the past is I've gone to basically the local park near my where I live and put up a net and have some of my kids from the club, and we just start playing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, and then have kids join us. And believe me, kids just come, they see the net and they want to play. And that's what we need to do, is get nets up. Get nets up in parks or wherever where we can get them up, and they'll come and play. And so that's basically one of the, Bill and I have been talking about these things for many years, and like I have portable stuff. I have equipment for young kids, 12 and unders, 10 and unders. I have for the older. So we do these things. However, it's to get them involved more into the club situation, it's a little bit more difficult. But in the summertime, if we can just put nets up out there, we'll have kids playing.
Awesome. Thank you, Merlin. Yeah, John, along the same idea, any particular outreach programs that you really love and want to talk about, or anything that's really happened because of the current pandemic situation that you just thought was very inspiring as well, on either ground, really, just really cool outreach grassroots programs that are coming up now?
Well, as Merlin was talking, I was thinking about one of the successful things I did at the University of Colorado. And it can be applied, I think, all the way down to the middle school level if the school is bigger, like some of your places. And that is to just, I think I blogged on it, something to the effect of, all I need is a net, or can I please just have a net? Currently, when any school kid says, I'd like to spike a volleyball, the person in charge of the equipment at a school says, okay, give me 20 minutes to set it up and da-da-da-da, versus when they say, hey, I want to shoot some hoop, all they do is hand them a basketball and they shoot hoop. So in 2 or more court situations, when you can get a YMCA to leave the volleyball net up all the time, and on that single court, they play half court basketball, but the net is always there. So a kid or 2 kids or 4 kids can say, we'd like to do some volleyball, and you don't have to take all the time to set it up and take it down. In our culture right now, you go into gyms, the hoops are all up, you spend all this time putting the volleyball nets up, you run the tournament, and then you have to take all the volleyball nets down. I'd love to have a culture of the volleyball nets are all up and the baskets are all raised. And if you want to play some basketball, you got to put my nets down, lower your nets. And then when you're done, you got to put your nets back up and put my nets back up. Right now, it's the opposite,
Yep, fair.
But to be able to get a net on a sand court, a little bit more challenging, but there are sand courts in your urban area, I know. And to get them on tennis courts. When I worked in El Salvador and Guatemala and stuff, these guys only have 1 indoor gym in the country. And so on all the concrete flat spots that you have basketball, that's where they play all their volleyball. And yeah, it's kind of like Chinese 9-man. It's not great for diving, but otherwise it's still a chance to be able to play. And on a tennis court, if you put, and Merlin's seen and Bill knows this well, if you put an eye bolt in at about 10 feet, or if you're in a tennis court, you just put it outside on the chain link fence and tie a rope at the end of the end line on the chain link fence, and you tie a 12-foot rope top to bottom on the chain link. That's your standard that lets you run and put down probably 6 youth courts with sidewalk chalk on a tennis court that probably even has lights because it's a tennis court. And the other thing that I would promote, that I think is important, is that when I was working with the Italian coaches this morning, we talked about that which you teach, you learn. And we all know if you teach something, you get better at it. And while I see clubs, 18-year-olds doing that perhaps for a club, or I see a college coach doing it for 2 weeks in a summer camp. What I see around the world where the population has great youth volleyball, Thailand and Japan comes to mind. What's happening there is that the sixth graders, the 12-year-olds, are coaching the third and fourth graders with the long net down the middle of the court, and they're playing doubles and triples, and triples means the good player who's 12 is setting and making the second contact for the lesser skilled 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. But it's never 6-on-6, and it's always got the 14-year-olds are helping the 12-year-olds, the 12-year-olds are helping the 10-year-olds. We kind of go, hey, all right, my 18s are ready to do the 12-year-olds or something. No, it's not that big of an age gap for a 12-year-old to be talking to a 10-year-old. It's only been a couple of years since they did that, not some old fart like me that's 60 years past that age group, I mean, so a 10-year-old in fourth grade looks up at the sixth graders in awe of how athletic they are and how amazing they are and everything. So I would just encourage more clubs to say, hey, the way we do it in the one club for a long time, every other Tuesday, the 13-year-old team spent 50% of their practice coaching little kids. Every other Tuesday, the 14-year-olds did that. So the 10 and 8-year-olds came for 1 hour of practice, which is plenty for that age group. The coaches were the 13s every other week and the 14s every other week. And it was part of their practice. So the gym is already paid for. The system is set up quickly with, the rope nets, 4 on a rope, or even a ribbon that you guys may have seen. And because that which they teach, they learn, this outreach creates a connection for the club that means they want to play for that club if they choose to play volleyball and love it as they move up the pipeline of age. But because they're playing with a 12-year-old that kind of knows what they're doing, there's all this success because they're touching the second ball in a game of triples or whatever. So, or standing outside and they're coaching the kid in doubles. And it only takes 2 hours a month out of your program, but at the same time, that's for 8 weeks, that's a perfect league length for ages 10, 11, 12, that kind of younger age group that's in a grassroots way. So awesome. Those are the two things I think. Get more nets up that don't have to be taken down, and get younger kids, not the older kids, to be the coaches of the younger kids.
No, thank you, John. I think those are all both awesome. So this next question goes kind of more of a GEVA question to Kevin and Bill. So obviously, the elephant in the room is the pandemic, and eventually we're going to exit out of this thing, and we're going to transition back into what people are calling quote unquote normal. So has GEVA yet talked about, how do we go from here to there? Will we have a season, or you guys looked at a season where there might be, you can do small group instruction. You can only have, 5 people at your practice. Now you can have a full practice. Has the GEVA board looked at those things and how to transition back into normalcy? And do you guys have personal ideas on that? And just curious on, if that discussion's happened. So I'll open it up to Kevin first.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there was a discussion last night. Bill had run a call with his junior competition committee, and there was several thoughts on that. And I think the first one that came to the forefront, and I'll let Bill go into more detail on it, but the first one that had come to the forefront is there's a very good chance there won't be competition next year. Because at the end of the day, these local governments are not letting you into their buildings, and crowd control basically is what we're talking about here. How are we going to do this? But you can go run a practice with 12 kids. That is an environment where is fairly sustainable and controllable. So that's a possibility. And so, you know, looking at that, you know, you can go work these kids out, train these kids. And, you know, for, you know, a bunch of us that have gotten older doing this, it kind of warms your heart knowing that you grew up in an age where you didn't have this type of sport development on the weekends. You know, the funny thing was Easter just passed, and for the first time, we counted it, for the first time in 29 years, I was home on Easter Sunday, because I've always been in the gym, and my kids have grown up in the gym on Easter Sunday. So it was a little interesting to be at home when that happened. And it was kind of nostalgic in a way. You're just like, wow, this is really weird that we're celebrating a holiday for the first time in 30 years. So it was cool. But in terms of the development of it, yeah, that's a conversation we have. So I'm going to let Bill go a little bit further with it if he wants to follow up on the conversation.
Sure. There's a lot of different opinions. We have the ultra optimist who think everything will be back and running by junior nationals, and we have people that don't think that way. I just had a conversation today with John actually about the days of town leagues, and I see a lot of that stuff kind of coming back next year. I'm talking to a lot of club directors who don't know if they're going to even try to put together the type of program that goes to, you know, travel tournaments 5 times, you know, goes away for weekends and flies here and flies there. But they're not even going to bother trying to do that next year because they don't think it's going to happen, and they don't think it's going to be productive, and they don't think, you know, I don't know how things are in Colorado right now, John, but here people aren't working. Where, you know, I lived in a village. I moved 11 miles north now. But I lived in a village that had 27 restaurants and 100 kids graduating from their high school. So it was basically a tourist town. And those restaurants were all closed. The streets are deserted. And I don't know that it's going to come back. I have an awful lot of parents that struggle to pay for club volleyball now. They don't have jobs. So I think it's going to look very different. But I think it's a golden opportunity to do all those other things, like actually training, actually, you know, coming into the gym and, you know, playing 20 minutes of soccer and then 20 minutes of basketball and then 20 minutes or an hour of volleyball with young kids to do the project play kind of thing, you know, where you have multiple sports in one session. I honestly believe that we're not going to be back. I don't think there's a going back to what we perceived as normal. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. Yes, there still will be, you know, at some point there will be the national qualifiers because they need to have a national tournament. At some point there will be those things, but I don't think you're going to see the level of participation, that type of thing, at least for a few years, if ever. The kids will still develop. The kids. I was listening to Russ Rose the other day, and he was talking about, well, somebody asked him about what do you think your kids are doing now? He says, well, the ones that are going to be great are at home doing great things, working at getting great, and the knuckleheads at home being knuckleheads. And I think that's probably a reality. If it's a reality for him, you know it's a reality for us. So, you know, I see clubs that are involving their kids and keeping their kids involved and doing things 2 and 3 times a week with their kids. And I told John the other day, I mentioned, John, stop contacting them for a week and see if they don't find something else to do. And I think that's a reality. I think we're going to see better rounded kids, more rounded kids. I think we're going to see, listen, when you get the numbers of people we have not working now, just, the unemployment numbers, that's not coming back. They're not going to say, okay, country's open, everybody go back to work. It's not going to happen that way. And so I think that is going to affect a lot what we do. I know that sounds awful horrible and pessimistic and everything else, but I think there's a reality here. And I think if we don't adjust to it, if we don't look out and say, all right, now how am I going to get these kids to learn how to play sports or how to, or get, not even learn how to play sports. How am I going to afford these kids the benefit of what sports do for kids?
Right, and Bill, we talked about this a lot. In a sense, you have to get back to your philosophy, the core grassroots movement of, let's just get back to real training. We're not going to be able to fly across the entire country. We may not be able to play in 16 competitions this year, but we can still grow and love the sport of volleyball. But we have to do it in our gym, with that great culture. And I think there's no doubt that we can still do that. And even if that means starting with small groups of 5 kids, that's now how many more touches that small group is going to get, because there's, and then how much more feedback are they going to get if you do that as a quality coach? Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily think it needs to be, oh no, we don't have competition. Now it's, oh yeah, I can really get a lot more feedback. I can get a lot more touches if we use it in that way. And we've talked about that greatly too.
The COVID kind of killed it. But we decided, we've been fighting to get boys volleyball where we live forever. And we just couldn't get it. Finally, I got an AD to listen to open up the gym. And the first night we did it, we had 6 boys. The next night we did it, we had 10. And then within 4 weeks, we had 26 boys going in the gym and playing volleyball. And they were having a ball. And, they'll be there. They're the ones talking to us about, can we go, when it opens up, can we come back? So, I think that if we approach it with the idea of giving kids the whole idea of the culture that Cody was talking about, giving them the chance to establish a culture of play, a culture of team, a culture of belonging, I think we're doing our job by doing that. I think that's, listen, there's going to be Olympians. There was Olympians, believe it or not, there were Olympians before club volleyball. There really were, and they were pretty good. So, there's a reality here, and I just think I think there's a lot we can do. I think we need to pay attention to it, but I think there's a lot we can do.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Bill.
If I can just chime in here a little, John.
Sure.
The last tournament we were at Boston. We're at Boston, and the Canadian teams were there, and they were, the younger teams, and they didn't have a libero. They play without a libero. Everybody plays front row and back row. And now, if we go back to having 4 or 5 kids in the gym and practice, that will just again start the development of our middles who we never use, and our liberos who would let hit or let do anything else. It will start to bring back that kind of, make it a lot better, because we started specialization too soon. John, we've always talked about that, John. With other countries, they don't let their kids, Brazil and all of these other countries, they don't let their kids specialize until they're like 16, I believe. When they're playing 14s and 12s, everybody plays every position. But we go to tournaments where kids are 10 years old and there's a libero on the court. So now, if we have only 4 or 5 kids in the gym, now everybody will be able to practice every skill and make for better development of a volleyball player rather than a positional player.
I agree, Merlin. And John, I'm sure you have some stuff to speak on that, and Cody as well. I think we turn this around and make this into a positive thing. Like I said, more feedback, more touches. We can develop the whole player. I mean, maybe this is a blessing in disguise, for at least developing young volleyball players.
Yeah, and we, basketball is going to see a growth, because in Tokyo 2021, you're going to see the 3-on-3 game, which we've been able to be doing since '96, 2-on-2. We just don't take enough advantage of it, simply. So I'd be cool with just 4 kids in the gym, or maybe 5 with the setter ducking back and forth underneath the net to be the setter for both sides, so they really get a good workout. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree in the doubles game. I mean, even with boys, boys, like, you get hooked on the whole game, and yeah, I don't have much to add, but
I mean, Cody didn't play much 6-on-6 growing up. He played 8 or so other sports, and so did his sister. They just got good at volleyball by playing a lot of 2-on-2 and getting all the reps that you get there. So, you know, I see that as a blessing. And as you guys are kind of talking about, we just happen to have an Olympic sport that they could even be shooting towards or moving over to the indoor game. You know, Phil Dalhouser, Doug Beals said, I'd like to have Phil Dalhouser on my team, you know, because he's such an all-around player, you know.
I mean, with the doubles game, just functionally, it goes without saying, but if you're able to get 4 friends, all of a sudden, then you can make that happen, or you can link up with the men's B league, or find you know, even as a junior, you can find, I can't find guys my age. All of a sudden I can play with these double B guys, and they're going to kind of take me under the wing and teach me. So kids who can't get 12 kids in a gym, if you can get 3 or 4 and somehow link them up with an adult league, could be another great way that, you know, we're a great sport where, again, we're lifetime. So you can, probably so many of us have learned so much from the players that are older than us. So making that happen too can also be one way.
I kind of wanted to wrap around to the beginning of this, which is what can you do at home? And I want to make sure everybody listening know of 2 things that they may not have played, but that their kids can play even as we speak in the house. One of the games is called 2 versus 0. And whether you're doing it outdoors on a real court, or you're doing it indoors in the cleared out basement over a string, 2 versus 0 means the 2 of you are seeing how many in a row you can do in true ball control. So one's on one side of the rope and the other's on the other side, and they serve it. And that passer passes it towards the net because the server runs underneath the ribbon and becomes the setter. And so they pass to that person who just served to them and is now the setter, who sets the ball to them. And as soon as they set the ball, they back up to the other side of the court to be the digger for the 3rd hit by the receiver who hits the 3rd ball over the net.
Exhausting.
Who then, as soon as they hit the ball over the net to the digger, has to run forward underneath the string and become the setter for their brother, sister, or whatever on that side. And you can only do it for about 3 or 4 minutes before you're just tanked. But it only takes 2 people, and you're playing the whole game. You know, you're playing past that head and putting it over the net. The second one I wanted to throw out is something that Bill helped us film in his facility for one of our videos, but it's called Loser Becomes a Net, or if you want to be politically correct, Winners Stay On, you know, and get rid of the loser mentality or whatever. But you play 6 players can play 2 against 2 against 2. 2 of them are the net, or 3 players can play 1 against 1 with the 3rd person being the net, and the single player passes and hits to themselves. You know, you pass like so many of the videos you're seeing now, where they're not just going back and forth, but they're passing it to themselves, setting it to themselves, and then hitting it to somebody else. So in 1-on-1+1, or Loser Becomes the Net, you can do that with a balloon and have a blast with any age. You can do it with a beach ball, the Go Play balls that you guys may have some, or any beach ball, or you can do it with a, you know, volleyball. You're just going to probably break more things in the house unless you can go out to some place that's a little bit safer. But those 2 games of Loser Becomes the Net, Winners Stay On, and when you play it with 5 other friends, you know, because you got a bigger family, you actually are playing the whole doubles game. It's just whoever loses that point becomes the net for that next point. So I wanted to make sure that I got that out. And I have to go do another clinic here for Delta, but please, if you've gone this far listening to us,
which is
take about 7 minutes of your life out and go watch a video called The Backwards Bicycle. And then contact John or Kevin or Merlin or Bill and say, why can a person who knows how to ride a bike have only one change to a bicycle and he can't ride it for 8 months? And all four of those of your leaders there, even Aaron, can explain specificity in training and how important that is. But it's a video that I think everybody should watch, The Backwards Bike.
Awesome.
John, before you go, do you have a ribbon there that you and Cody could demonstrate those?
Yeah, we've only got two of us here. We're the
9,000 feet.
Yeah.
You got this old man at altitude. I don't know if you want to see that.
We'll pass. We're at 9,000 feet here.
All right.
Awesome, awesome. No, well, in closing, I wanted to thank everybody for coming. Bill Doyle, Kevin Delorier, Merlin Thompson, and our special guests, John and Cody Kessel. Definitely also a very thank you to Aaron Laban, our technical liaison for this event and social media coordinator. If you guys have any other questions that we didn't get to today, feel free to throw them in the comments. But gentlemen, I'll open it up to any closing comments. Bill Doyle, any closing comments before we go?
Just a couple of real quick ones. One is, Cody, we want to do a couple other things on this, and John, we want to do a couple of other things on this. The next one we have some planned as far as boys is concerned, and we have some planned as far as sitting is concerned. So respectively, if we could get you guys involved in those also, that would be really cool.
Awesome.
You know, I think people need to pay attention to what Cody was talking about culture. Your influence is never neutral, and you're going to have a culture in your gym, and it's going to be one thing or the other thing. It's not going to be neutral. So you need to pay attention to that. If you need to rewind and hear what he said again, I think it's important that you do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. Merlin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just stay safe, please. Please, you know, do what you have to do. We need to kick this thing and kick it out somewhere and try and get back to some sort of normalcy.
Great, thank you. Kevin, final thoughts, sir? Kevin, your mic's off.
Yeah, let's just keep growing the game. Like we're in a really good spot right now where you know, we're changing what we had come to know as normal, and now is a great opportunity to develop something new normal. And I think for a lot of us that have been around this for a while, it kind of feels good, but let's keep doing it. Let's keep promoting the 2-on-2 volleyball, you know, play with your friends. Just keep being imaginative about how you get outside and play, and it doesn't have to be volleyball either. Let's just keep pushing these kids to get out, because I think we've all seen the best volleyball players are the better athletes that are out there, and you don't, you know, like I think Cody's a good example of it. You don't have to grow up playing volleyball to be good at volleyball. You know, and I think that goes for a lot of kids that are out there, and let's just keep doing the best we can to grow the game. Just get out there and play a little bit, touch the ball, touch it off the house, find ways to just keep touching it, you know, and keep
Awesome.
having fun.
Cool. And John and Cody, last words?
Yeah, for me, I mean, Kevin touched on it too, but just keep finding ways to maybe reflect on why you fell in love with the game and why you're still involved with it, and see if you can, you know, if you still just transfer that in this time. You know, got to keep that love. You know, that's what keeps us all in it. We love the game. We love the people we meet, and the things it does for us. So just keep that in mind, the power of sport, and yeah, the love of the game.
You know, for me, it's how unique our sport is. So it's really challenging because we can never hold on to it. But the beauty of it is that because we're non-contact, my personal favorite way to play is reverse co-ed doubles, which means the two sisters who know how to play with the two brothers, or their dad and a brother, and the net is set at women's height or girls' height, and the guys have to hit and land behind the 3-meter line. But when guys and gals play the game together, not only do you have a lot of marriages take place at the adult co-ed level, but it's a really great way to train because you're pushing each other. Your little brother and your dad are, you know, pushing you to be better. So don't forget about co-ed, but also consider when you have the opportunity to play doubles only, to get the guys involved and play reverse co-ed. It's a really fun way to play the game.
Awesome. Thank you very much again. Our special guest, John and Cody Kessel. Again, I'm John Titus, GEVA, and the rest of the world. Thank you for tuning in to GEVA Live. We did unfortunately have a little technical difficulties, but I think we had a great show. And again, thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it greatly.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We did it.